both Rick and Michonne have lost their minds. This was one of the craziest episodes of The Walking Dead I've ever watched. Hello everyone, today we'll be discussing the third episode of The Ones Who Lived, entitled Bye. Now this was quite a roller coaster of an episode. I watched this episode about 2.5 times, and on my first watch I wasn't sure if I liked it. And I know there are actually some elements of it that I hated, but on second watch, when I thought about it a bit further, it kind of made more sense to me and it just appealed more to me. So let's talk about it. And yeah, it was a wild ride. Haven't seen an episode of The Walking Dead quite like it before. This show was interesting because you see Rick feeling strained all over the place, right? So he's dealing with Jadis, he's dealing with Pearl and Pearl's interaction with Michonne. He's dealing with Michonne, obviously. He's dealing with Beal and the pressure from the higher-ups, right? So he's getting it from all angles. And, like, we don't care about Jadis. I don't care about Pearl. And we care about Michonne. And it's almost as though Michonne, obviously she's dealing with a lot of garbage from Rick, but it's almost as though she's not really dealing or seeing the problem that she has with the CRM in general and her safety. So it's a very interesting episode from that perspective, right? So with Jadis, she's threatening Rick that if he and Michonne go, that she would kill everybody back in Alexandria. So he's got that pressure on him. And so he devises a plan to make it look like Michonne took off, and he got a walker body, put it in a CRM coat, and, you know, as a disguise. Mind you, that didn't really matter because Michonne came back after this send-off he gave her. And it was interesting in that, we'll get into details, but again, the bad pressures or like the negative forces I see from this episode are Jadis and Pearl. But Jadis, she's such an opportunist, right? She just wants to move up in the CRM. She likes the society, blah, blah, blah. And she doesn't want Rick or Michonne messing that up for her. And now that, you know, Michonne didn't leave, Jadis doesn't really care. She doesn't care. And so she's still flirting with Rick, telling him, like, oh, there's a reason why he stayed, or alluding that he stayed for her, which is hilarious. And at the end, where she tells him that he can visit her quarters and there's a nice view of the mountains out there. It's pretty funny. So again, Jadis, and she was kind of toying with them as well. Like, I thought it was actually pretty funny at the end when Jadis said, oh, Michonne, she hasn't seen me as yet. And then Michonne sees her 2 seconds later. And Jadis is just there, oh, she saw me. She's just playing with him, toying with him. And one thing too, like, she needs to stop with the sexual harassment. But I feel as though, like, if Rick were to take her up on the advances, she wouldn't say no. I'm sure of that. But I'm positive that she just harasses him just to get under his skin, just to annoy the hell out of him. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny to see on screen. And again, Jadis, I don't like her, but I love Pollyanna McIntosh's portrayal of her. I think she adds a funny, antagonistic element to the story. Now, another stressor of Rick, and really theoretically should be a stressor of Michonne, is Pearl. As I mentioned in previous videos, I did not get a good sense from Pearl. She was too bought into the CRM. She seemed very unforgiving. She wasn't giving Rick latitude when he was trying to leave. Like, not that it's her responsibility, but I didn't get a good sense from her, and I didn't like the glass throwing and stuff like that. And so all the bad feelings I had about her kind of came home to roost in this episode. So I do appreciate the fact that she vouched for Michonne, or Dana, on Rick's behalf, because as he mentioned, he doesn't have the capital with Beal to ask for any special favors. So she took it on herself, even though she found out that Michonne is on Beal's radar. It's not a good thing, obviously. And she still kind of took her under her wing. However, when she officially met Dana and she took her to the bombed out arena that they were at in the first episode, and she was just sussing her out and interrogating her about how she found Rick and why she saved him and stuff like that. And when Michonne said to her, well, he was on the ground, he was helpless, and I went there to help him. And Thorne thinks it's hilarious that Rick was helpless, which I thought was hilarious because Michonne and all of us have seen Rick helpless countless times before. And Michonne very often has been there to help him out with that. And the idea that Rick is not can never need help is just kind of silly to begin with. I know that he is her family, which was also hilarious when she said that. You could see Michonne's breathing started to rise, and she gave Rick a subtle look, and Rick's gave her the most sheepish look. That was kind of hilarious. But anyway, with Thorne, she has mentioned several times that she's not Okafor, right? She doesn't have that degree of charitability that Okafor extended to her and to Rick. So when I heard that, she mentioned it 2 or 3 times. So I knew that would come and be to Michonne's detriment at some point. And when we get to the field out in the West Coast in preparation for the big summit, where she is righteously upset that Michonne disobeyed her command, because Michonne should have, theoretically, they're in the army, so that should happen. Yeah, she was upset. But when she had Michonne in her line of sight with her gun scope and was about to shoot her, I was so angry. Because yes, Michonne did wrong, but to shoot her, to kill her, and I know she has power, she could do it, she can say, well, this person, I told them not to come in the field, and they're out there, and, things happen kind of situation. But that just showed me how low her character is, and also I know how important moving up in the ranks of this military is to her, and so she would do anything to get that. And I know she's not really invested in Michonne because she thinks she's Dana, and she just kind of took her on as a favor, but to kill her for that told me everything I needed to know. And one thing I'm curious about is the echelon report, because she mentioned the echelon report twice, and she made it sound pretty dire. And at the end of the episode, we see that Rick is supposed to have a conversation with Beal to talk about his impending promotion. So theoretically, he should probably get access to it, but who knows if he'll be able to. He fell out of a helicopter, so who knows. Yes, so that is my stance on Pearl. Still don't like her. Now, and Beal, we'll mention Beal here too. It was very interesting because even though in the end, Rick is supposed to have a conversation and it's probably going to be that he's getting promoted, I don't know. I'm not really sure what I think about Beal because I really haven't seen him that much. Early in the episode, he mentioned that he also didn't have a good read on Rick as well. So I guess we're in line like that. So we'll see more. I tend to think, just based on the fact that this military kills A's, that he might not be the best of guys. Who knows? We'll see. Now, the main part of this story that I thought was absolutely insane was the dynamic between Rick and Michonne. So, like I mentioned in previous videos, Rick and Michonne are very, very similar. They always have been, and that's why they work so well as a couple and work well together, right? Like we saw Michonne when she was killing the walkers, she was doing it just as ferociously and efficiently as Rick was doing. But what really drove me crazy about Michonne this week is that she did not follow any orders at all. And I know Michonne to be a smart woman, very capable woman, so I was surprised that she was just doing her own thing, like she was Michonne in Alexandria. Like she's under control, she can't leave at the moment, and she's not playing the role that Rick told her to play. And I know Rick made a lot of decisions for her this week, but she should have listened to that one at least, right? Because she clearly, anyone can see, that woman saw that she's an A. She knows what she's doing. She's very efficient. And she just didn't downplay. She was just bringing more attention to herself. But at the same time, I do think the communication between Rick and Michonne was absolutely ghastly this weekend, or this episode. There were a lot of things that Rick should have told her from the jump, and like, we don't know if they've had any conversations a bit off screen, but from what we saw on screen, Rick didn't tell her that Jadis was there to begin with. I'm sure they haven't talked about how he got there and how she got there and like all those little details, but in terms of the imminent problem that's there with the them sussing out that she's an A and not a B, he didn't really give her much direction. Let's talk about Rick's escape plan for Michonne. So I understand that that is coming from a place of love, a place of fear. Rick is so stressed out this entire episode. So stressed out. So I understand he's doing it for her, and he wants her to be safe, be with Judith in Alexandria. So he arranges this big escape for Michonne. He tells her where to go to get supplies, what pathway to take, and they meet at like X o'clock. And she gets to the end, and she finds the boat with the note, and in there she sees that he says, like, I'm not coming, I want you to leave, I love you forever, like, bye, basically, right? And the look on Michonne's, I felt so bad for her, because she looked shocked, like, completely bewildered, like, how could he do this? Like, how could he do this? And one thing, again, Rick and Michonne, with their personality traits, like, he knows that she's a woman of agency, right? She doesn't need him or anyone else telling her what to do. Does he actually think that if he makes up this route that for her to escape, that she's going to go? No, of course not. She doesn't want him to be there. No matter if he thinks he deserves to be there, she's not going to want him to be there, and she's not going to want to leave right now. And with Rick, I do understand that he is not in the same headspace as the Rick that we've known all these years, right? He has been basically imprisoned for 6 years. He was withdrawn. He was suicidal 2 weeks ago. So he's not in the right headspace. And so as happy as he was to see Michonne last week, he's also mortified that she's now in this situation. So he's just not thinking properly. And what I thought was hilarious in this entire episode is the tension between Rick and Michonne and all the side-eye Michonne gave him this episode. She probably gave him side-eye 7 times. It was hilarious. It was funny when Michonne came back after she abandoned Rick's plan for her to escape. And she's back at the culling facility, and of course she's angry, so she's really going at the walkers hardcore. Just as hardcore as Rick was in episode 1. Why? Because Rick and Michonne are the same person, basically. And when Pearl and Rick are observing her, and when Rick notices oh, that person is my wife, he just looked like, oh my gosh. And there's one point where he's just looking at her going hard. And he's like, oh, there she goes again. And it was really funny. When she sees him, she gives him the meanest cut eye. And then when she walks off and he approaches her and says, keep walking and turns to the right and we can talk in the hallway or whatever. Of course, when he says to keep walking, she stops, gives him more side eye, and then she grudgingly goes over. When they get to the place to chat, it was hilarious when she ripped off his helmet and threw it on the ground, and she just looked absolutely incensed. And Rick looked scared. It was really bad. And at the end when she left without saying a word, and he was just like, oh my God. And he it kind of leaned down a bit. He looked like he was about to fall over. He was so stressed out. So, Rick, he was kind of, not on his best behavior this week. But yeah, that man, he didn't have a good day. That's a bad week for him. This whole episode, I feel Rick was thinking, what in the hell is Michonne doing? And Michonne was thinking, what is wrong with him? What is he doing? So the communication, horrible. It really they need to talk it out. And they need to find time to steal away. And even like, say, for example, the issue with the explosion at the clearing site in the West Coast, they got a few seconds to like, it was nice. They had a little tender moment, a nice little kiss and stuff. And Michonne asked him to leave again, and he said, no, we can't. They should have talked a bit more at that point. Who knows what they did off screen, but we didn't see it. So as far as I'm concerned, it didn't happen. Michonne also making dumb decisions. In addition to not tamping down her expertise in killing walkers, she very flagrantly disobeyed Thorne's command when they were out there with that bomb machine on the wheels. And like, I don't really know much about the military, but what I do know is that people have to follow orders. You can't have somebody going off rogue, deciding like, oh no, my way's better. I don't need to listen to my commander or whatever the title is. Like, you have to listen. Michonne has to know that. So I understand why Pearl was upset. And yeah, it was just too much. And again, like, does Michonne want to be on Beal's radar even more? It doesn't make any sense. The last 2 minutes of this episode were absolutely insane to me. I never thought the things that I heard and the things that I saw, I never thought I would see on the show. I don't know why. I was just so thrown when I saw the last little bit. Rick here, again, Rick looks like he's got no sleep. He looks like he's about to fall over sometimes. He's so stressed out. He is so triggered by both Pearl and then right after Jadis. Pearl says, you know, this woman is no good. Take her back to the base. And then he sees Jadis. Jadis is a constant reminder of the threat that she can pose. So right after, when Jadis and Michonne make eye contact and Rick flies over to Michonne and she's like, what, Jadis is here? And he says it doesn't matter. And then he says what I never expected to hear Rick say. He tells her that she has to go. Like, that's fine. And then he says, you have to go back to Alexandria. And he doesn't care if he has to knock her out and put her on the boat himself. She's going home. And I was like, excuse me, sir? Excuse me? And Michonne was just as shocked as I was. I couldn't believe he said, I understand again where he's coming from. And I understand that he's stressed. But to tell that woman that, you know who you're talking to. Like, why would you tell her that? And it's funny because Michonne has knocked him out before, and I personally thought it was hilarious. I laughed so hard when that happened. So I understand that I might have a double standard, but for him to say that to her, didn't like it. Didn't like it at all. Call me a hypocrite if I thought it was funny when Michonne did it. Fine. But I did not like it when he said that to her. It's something I think they can overcome because, again, where it came from. But he can't do it again, okay? And then when he said, we're done or it's done, what we had is broken, I was like, no, Rick, you're broken. You're broken. I was so mad and I was so angry and I felt what Michonne felt. I was just so angry at Rick. I know he's stressed out and he just said that in a fit of rage because he's a basket case. But that was not the way to deal with Michonne. And then we get to the last bit. Them in the helicopter, it's raging, thunderstorms, rain, all that kind of stuff. And the two of them are looking right at each other, daggers flying back and forth, mainly from Michonne to Rick. And then she takes off her seatbelt situation. She opens the door, grabs him, and they go down into this sky. I was so shocked. Because at first I was kind of surprised that Michonne would do that, because I feel as though Michonne has been kind of acting out of character this episode by not doing the smart things that I know her to do. And again, I know the emotions are high and not everyone acts rationally all the time, but I thought it was a lot for Michonne. However, as a piece of entertainment, it was quite entertaining. I was enthralled, and I'm sure they're going to land on their feet or least not break their feet wherever they land eventually. But yeah, no, it was a lot. It was a lot. So I'm very excited to see next week's episode. It was kind of nice when Michonne went to the fair and she saw the artisan that made those etchings on the iPhone. And she got a little story about, what Rick was like when he first got there and how he went there every couple of months to get new pictures of she and Judith and how he tried to get one of Carl. So that was, a little sentimental and kind of reminded Michonne, like, even though she's pissed the hell off at Rick, that, there's still a good man underneath there that loves her and that she still loves, and he just needs to be found, as she mentioned. So that was nice. Some takeaways from this episode. Jadis's hair. I'm glad Rick called her out on her stupid haircut because it is pretty stupid. But I will say, if she were to grow her hair like 1 inch and style it a little differently, she'd have like a really cool 90s mushroom cut hairstyle, like the woman from Wilson Phillips or that woman from Melrose Place. Again, I'm old, so I'm using old references here. But yeah, it's very 90s, and I think it would have looked very cool. I also thought with Pearl that she probably should have picked up that there was something else going on between Rick and Michonne. Because Michonne gave Rick so many glances this week that weren't subtle at all. And I think any one of us, if we were around two people who were kept on sharing glances and some that were daggers, that something is awry somehow for whatever type of relationship you think they might have, whether it's, romantic or adversarial. Something is definitely going on. So I think now that she is promoted, she needs to work on that. Also, I thought it was kind of lame that they needed 8 people to kill 200 walkers. They're no good. And I understand that Pearl might not be in the trenches as much anymore, but she was really struggling out there on the field. She's not that good of an army person, my opinion. I would love to know if you also felt like you went on an emotional roller coaster during this show. I felt like I got whiplash constantly. It was a lot. And I am very thankful that I felt that way because, again, I had never reacted that way to a Walking Dead show before. I felt many things watching the episodes over the past, 12 years for me. And like I've cried several times. I've been triumphant. I've been sad. I've been disturbed. I felt like a lot of different things, but I've never really felt like, woo, like this crazy roller coaster they went on this week. So I would love to know if you felt the same way too. And if you feel the same way I feel about Michonne not acting properly, Rick just being so stressed out, and, we gotta fix Rick. Rick has to come back. Jadis is just being Jadis. It's all good. And Pearl. Do you dislike Pearl as much as I do? Because I dislike her. Write a comment in the comment section. We can have a discussion there. And yeah, I'll be back with a trailer video and possibly another one this week about episode number 4. And we'll take things from there. Okay, bye everyone.